single dad's lonely dinner transformed by an unexpected request. My son is hungry, can we join you? Tom sat at the small kitchen table, steam rising from the pot of spaghetti, a familiar comfort as he reminded himself of the simple beauties in his life. 8-year-old Ethan was his everything, and their routine dinners had become a sacred ritual, a source of solace following the tragic loss of his wife. Despite the economic strain, they found joy in the modest meals and shared laughter, two boys left to navigate a world that felt heavier than it should. But tonight, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows in their tiny home, unease creeped in, clinging tighter than the last rays of light. A knock shattered the calm, reverberating through Tom's chest. He hesitated, his mind racing with thoughts of judgment and harsh realities. David, an old childhood friend. Their lives had forked in different directions. Tom had tried to carve out a life from the ashes of despair, while David had slipped away into shadows of struggle. Would his presence lead to unwanted complications? The ethics of sharing their meager meal clawed at his conscience. How could he invite them in when he feared his food wouldn't last long? After a brief internal war, Tom opened the door. He pushed aside his doubts, and a wave of compassion washed over him at the sight of David, wearied yet familiar. Beside him stood a boy, Nico, with timid eyes and a hand clutching his stomach. Hunger seeped into the air, pulling Tom's heartstrings taut. He invited them in, heart pounding with the tightening knot of hesitation. As they settled in, Nico's eyes sparkled at the sight of the dinner, a flicker of hope amidst his evident anxiety. Stories poured from David's lips, old memories blending with new struggles, lost jobs, lean years, words flowing as easily as Tom's sauce simmered. But with each chuckle shared came weighty confessions, bare truths creeping into the conversation, layering the air with vulnerability and regret. What did success really mean? Was it money and status or love and connection? Tom felt the tension build, heart racing at the realization of how far they'd all fallen from basic expectations of adulthood. Ethan laughed with Nico, brightening the room, igniting warmth that burned through Tom's internal conflict. It was a moment he cherished, yet fear clawed at his insides. What if he failed to sustain this fragile happiness? The weight of societal expectations loomed like a thundercloud, threatening to unleash moments of uncertainty. Just as hopes began to rise, another knock echoed through the humble space, a harbinger of yet another complication. A single thought sharpened in Tom's mind as he approached the door: what could this mean? Would the next visitor bring more chaos to their fragile evening, or perhaps a lifeline to renew their shared connection? At that moment, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that his life, once again, teetered on the edge of something monumental. The night lay before him, thick with unspoken fears and aching questions. Could this evening redefine their paths, or would it shatter the delicate balance he had just begun to build? Tom's heart raced as he opened the door, revealing a figure cloaked in familiarity yet shrouded in anxiety. It was Lisa, a close friend from his past, but it had been years since he had seen her last. The weight of her uncertain gaze struck him as hard as the unexpected knock moments ago. She appeared weary, and the shadows under her eyes screamed of long battles fought against life's relentless challenges. Tom, she said hesitantly, I didn't know if you'd be home. I was in the neighborhood. There was an underlying urgency in her tone that made Tom uneasy. As the evening's tension thickened, he noticed Ethan obliviously engaged in light-hearted banter with Nico, their laughter standing in stark contrast against the somber backdrop of adult worries. Of course, come in, he replied, though his voice held a twinge of reluctance. He sensed the fragile mood shift again, unsure whether Lisa's arrival was a blessing or an impending storm. There might be layers beneath her words that he wasn't prepared to unravel. As she stepped inside, Tom's mind was bombarded with remembrances of carefree times, interspersed with the weight of the last few years. When had life become so complicated, so full of uninvited demands? Yet, there was something profound in her presence, a stark reminder of connection, perhaps something he needed to embrace, no matter how complex the path seemed. I was actually wondering if you might need help, Lisa said, a flicker of hope mingling with a touch of vulnerability. I've been looking for work, and I thought I might lend a hand. We could figure things out together, you know? The boys can play while well, her voice trailed off, the tension in her shoulders palpable. He hesitated, weighing her proposal. The idea of allowing someone into their fragile routine was both appealing and terrifying. What if it exposed them further or fired up the layers of grief he often kept buried? He caught Ethan's eye just then, wide and innocent, and it was as if the boy silently urged him to take the chance, to allow growth in their lives even if it came wrapped in uncertainty. "Well, I could use a hand with organizing the books I brought back from storage," he replied carefully. It was a step, small as it was, toward collaboration and rejuvenation. Perhaps there was strength in numbers. Resilience could blossom from shared struggle. "And maybe there's space for you in the kitchen next week?" Her smile, while tentative, sparked something deep inside him, a faint light of potential. As they moved toward the kitchen, the conversations flowed and intertwined with sudden purpose. Each shared aspect of their lives revealed threads of unrecognized strength, a breadth of experience that could transform his solitary existence. With the evening unfolding around them, Tom dared to peer into the nuances of his reality. Conversations shifted between lighthearted jokes and deeper confessions, revealing unspoken challenges they faced but also hidden reservoirs of resilience that had long been buried beneath the noise of survival. However, just as hope began to weave itself into the fabric of their gathering, Tom noticed David's expression shift. Anxiety danced across his face, reflecting inner turmoil. Perhaps old wounds had yet to heal, a realization gnawed at Tom's stomach. Was their evening truly building towards connection and strength, or would it expose fractures that threatened to shatter any progress they had made? Tom's thoughts spiraled into a whirlpool of concerns, suddenly unsure if he could handle another visit. Yet, beneath it all, a spark ignited within him, the chance not only to redefine his existence but to propel his emotional evolution forward, to embrace the possibility of communal healing. At that moment, a silent resolution formed in his mind. He would confront these feelings, and whatever lay ahead. But as the clock ticked softly in the background, he couldn't help but wonder, would tomorrow bring them the resolution they craved, or cast them further into disarray? The night was long, and their journey was only just beginning. What awaited them beyond this fragile moment remained cloaked in uncertainty. As the dawn broke, Tom's mind was a swirl of thoughts from the previous night. The laughter of the boys echoed in his ears, but it clashed with the weight of his uncertainty regarding Lisa's offer. Was this simply a temporary reprieve from loneliness, or could it mark a shift toward a more vibrant existence? In the solitude of the kitchen, he contemplated that very possibility. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, yet his heart felt heavy with the fear of vulnerability. Leaning against the counter, glancing at the coffee pot as if it held answers, he wondered if he could embrace the change that Lisa's presence could bring. It was frightening, this prospect of relying on someone else, but perhaps it was also the very thing he needed. He decided he would take the first step, not just for himself but for Ethan as well. Their interactions had become routine, predictable, a cycle he had resigned himself to. Maybe collaborating with Lisa would breathe new life into their days. Yet, the thought of asking for her help loomed over him, chanting reminders of past failures and the fear of showing weakness. Still, possibilities glimmered in his mind. Organizing the books was a project he had put off for far too long. The clutter in his home mirrored the clutter within himself, a distortion of purpose and order. Perhaps with Lisa assisting, they could address both at once. A thought flickered: what if he mediated that space with her by confronting his fears directly? This was not just about physical help, it was about learning to let others in, a step toward emotional maturity. Ethan's laughter distracted him, and he found himself smiling despite his reservations. The boy was a beacon of pure joy, a living reminder of what mattered most. It was time to give him more than just survival, he deserved a renewed vision of life. Tom made a mental note to discuss the plan with Ethan first. The small commitments they made together would forge a path, not just for him, but for both of them. Over the next few hours, he meticulously arranged the books by genre, each title illuminating his memories of late-night reading marathons. Soon enough, Lisa arrived and assisted with a genuine focus that invigorated his spirits. As they moved through the house, discussions flowed more freely than before. Fiction turned into reflection, and he found himself sharing fragments of his past he hadn't spoken about in years. Suddenly, her question pierced through the nostalgia. "Tom, how are you really doing?" The inquiry shifted the atmosphere, causing an unexpected tension. Tom hesitated, every instinct urging him to retreat behind his defenses, yet something deep inside pushed him to confront the truth. I'm managing. But honestly, I'm tired of just managing. I want to thrive. Lisa nodded, her understanding gaze propelling him forward. Then this is your chance. We can tackle the weight of the past together. Her words clicked something in him, a dawning realization that reliance wasn't a weakness, it was a pathway to strength. A faint hum of competition sparked between them as they made progress with the books. With every shuffle and realignment, they delved deeper into shared anecdotes and explained emotions. Tom began to recognize a strength within Lisa that resonated with his own, one honed by life's relentless challenges. Yet, beneath this veneer of progress, Tom sensed a lingering presence of unresolved tension. David's unease gnawed at him. Just as he thought he could begin healing, a cloud of doubt brushed against him. The pleasant atmosphere was still fragile. Each laugh shared felt precarious, flirting with a darker reality that could rear its head at any moment. As they wrapped up their first productive session, Tom contemplated how easy it would be to slip back into old habits. Could the connections created last beyond this moment? He felt the need to solidify their newfound dynamic, less a proposition and more a promise. How about we make this a regular thing? He suggested, his voice echoing his resolve. Lisa's eyes lit up, but he noted an underlying flicker of hesitation. Just then, Ethan burst into the room, eager for approval and validation. Can we do this again, Dad? The boy asked, his enthusiasm palpable. Tom's heart softened. Suddenly, it all clicked, the importance of consistency, support, and nurturance in both their lives. But the thought of diving deeper into this new routine brought him face to face with impending decisions he hadn't anticipated. Before he could respond, his phone erupted into a chaotic ring, piercing their fragile bubble. The moment felt like a jolt from the universe, pulling him from possibility, back to the layers of responsibility and struggle. Who could this be? With a glance at Lisa and Ethan, worry creased his brow. Whatever lay ahead wasn't just a choice of routines. It was a leap towards understanding his true capabilities as both a father and a partner in recovery. So, as he grappled with how to respond, Tom realized he must confront the influences of his past. Would a new connection offer liberation, or would it expose him to the pains of his history? The answers were closer than ever, but tumult still brewed just beneath the surface. What awaited him on the other side of that call? Tom fumbled with his phone, glancing briefly at the screen. The caller ID read, Mom. A wave of resignation washed over him. He hadn't spoken to her in weeks. He hesitated, torn between the baggage of their strained relationship and the potential fork in his life this moment presented. Go ahead, take it, Lisa encouraged softly, as if sensing his internal debate. There was a depth to her voice that underscored her belief in his growth, a signal that she understood the weight of this call. Tom inhaled deeply, forcing himself to push aside the apprehension swelling within. I'll be right back, he said, stepping into the hallway where silence enveloped him like a blanket. Hey, Mom, he answered, trying to sound upbeat. Tom. I was just thinking about you, his mother's voice chirped, but underneath her enthusiasm was a familiar edge, a mix of guilt and expectation that made his stomach churn. Yeah, it's been a while, he replied cautiously, his mind racing to keep the conversation superficial. I know things have been rough, she said, a sharp intake of breath insinuating the unsaid. But I'd love to see Ethan. Maybe we can have dinner together this weekend? An unease gripped him. The thought of bringing Ethan into their complex web of family history made his skin prick. He was on the cusp of building something new with Lisa and Ethan, and the prospect of mixing in his mother's chaotic influence felt like a trial by fire. I'll think about it, he said, keeping his tone neutral, but he could feel the hesitance gnawing at him. How could he hold on to the fragile thread of progress he'd begun with Lisa and Ethan while welcoming past turmoil back into their lives? Please, Tom. I want to make things right. I know I haven't been the best mother, but I'm trying to change, she pleaded, her voice breaking slightly. Change takes time, Mom, he replied, the frustration slipping through. Can we just take it slow? A pause followed, leaving Tom with the haunting silence punctuated only by the distant sounds of laughter emanating from the other room. He hung up feeling tethered again, the past wrapped around him like a thick fog. Who was he to deny her desire for connection, yet how could he put his son in that line of fire? Returning to Lisa and Ethan, he plastered on a smile, trying to mask the tension swirling in his chest. But it didn't escape their notice. "What's up?" Ethan asked, energized by the prospect of conversation. "Just family stuff," Tom deflected, redirecting the energy. The boy deserved vibrant moments, not shadows from the past. "Hey, want to help me bake cookies? We can surprise Lisa." "Yeah. Cookies." Ethan cheered as they moved towards the kitchen. Tom felt the ache in his chest merge with renewed determination. This was the heartbeat of his goals, creating fulfilling memories with Ethan, reinforcing the importance of their bond. As he rummaged through the pantry, he made a silent vow to navigate his own distractions with clarity. Lisa joined them, her innate ability to weave into their little world becoming comforting. She brought flour from the counter and playfully dusted it across Ethan's nose, eliciting an explosion of laughter that made Tom's heart lift. Perhaps building a more resilient life was not just about tackling the past but creating new moments with those who genuinely mattered. Still, the heaviness of his mother's call lingered. The week ahead felt tumultuous, the invitation for dinner looming like an unscheduled exam at the end of a semester. Would he let that past contaminate the present? As the mix on the counter thickened, Tom pondered how to establish boundaries, personal and familial, that would allow him to foster these new connections while keeping the old ones at bay. "Tom, are we making chocolate chip or peanut butter?" Lisa's voice broke his reverie, pulling him back from the edge of intrusive thoughts. "Let us do both," he declared, setting his face with determination. Each decision carved out another pathway toward the future he wanted for himself and Ethan. Yet, even as they shaped the cookies, another voice murmured beneath the surface, a familiar whisper of fear, coiling itself around his resolve. The upcoming dinner could unravel delicately spun threads of trust. The phone call was merely the beginning. What would the next steps reveal about himself and the parameters he had to put in place? With the boy's laughter harmonizing with the scent of baking cookies, Tom couldn't shake the pulse of tension that throbbed just below the surface. How long could this joyful routine last without facing the discord beckoning him back? Would he muster the strength to confront his past when it came knocking again? The weight of choice loomed ahead, yet clarity remained elusive. As he stirred the mix, Tom felt the stirrings of determination, an assertion that buried uncertainties would not rob him of the newfound heights he aimed to climb. But the deeper question remained unanswered. When the next call came, would he stand firm with his newfound focus, or would he relinquish control to memories that clouded his aspirations? A sudden noise shattered the moment. The phone buzzed again. Tom halted, staring at it as if it were a ticking time bomb. Tom's heart raced as he stared at the buzzing phone, its persistent vibration breaking through the laughter echoing in the kitchen. He recognized the caller ID before he even picked it up. It was Lisa, a reminder of the connection he was trying so hard to nurture. The call pulled him from the warmth of the moment, summoning the shadows he was unwilling to confront. With a deep breath, he accepted the call. "Hey, Lisa." "Tom, I just got a text from Ethan's school," she said, her tone quickening, dripping with concern. "There's a last-minute program tonight. They want us to bring snacks and come support the kids. It sounds fun." His initial reaction was excitement, but the realization of the timing slammed against him like a wall. He didn't want to abandon this budding connection they were building for something so sudden. But maybe this was an opportunity, the kind of moment he needed to foster joy and resilience in Ethan, far away from his own tangled past. "I'm in," he said, feeling the rush of adrenaline. "Let us do it." "Great. I'll grab some fruits and crackers while you finish these cookies," she said, her relief palpable as it washed over him. Tom hung up and faced the mixing bowl again, the tension in his chest easing slightly. He poured in the chocolate chips, watching them tumble into the batter as if each chip was a fresh possibility. In that moment, he realized he was on the verge of something profound. He could reshape how he reacted to challenges, finding pathways that included rather than excluded. "Ethan." Tom called out, and the boy darted in, covered in flour and sugar, eyes bright with excitement. Are you ready for some extracurricular adventures tonight? Yeah. What is going on? Ethan's joy was contagious, pulling Tom deeper into the moment. Your school is having a last-minute program, and we're going to bring snacks and cheer for your friends. He watched as Ethan processed the news, a mix of confusion and intrigue flickering across his face. It'll be like a surprise party for your classmates. Plus, we'll have the cookies, right? Awesome. Can I help? Ethan asked, bouncing on his toes. Of course. How about we package them all up together? They quickly organized the cookies, arranging them in a way that would entice his classmates, filling the kitchen with the aroma of warm chocolate and childhood memories. As they worked side by side, an idea began to crystallize within Tom. Aligning with Lisa and building this new family dynamic meant establishing firm new traditions, stepping into an environment that symbolized the future he envisioned away from the chaos of his past. Dad, do you think Grandma will come to see me tonight? Ethan asked, his tone shifting with an edge of concern. The question struck a nerve, a wave of anxiety washing over him. He hadn't given Ethan's grandmother much thought since the call, and the idea of her appearing there filled him with apprehension. Would she disrupt this carefully woven fabric of joy? Could she be a source of friction as he attempted to craft new normals? I don't know, buddy, he said, carefully considering his words. But we'll have each other there. That's what matters. Ethan nodded, still gleefully packaging cookies but unaware of the complexity his question had stirred within his father. Tom's resolve hardened further in that moment. He had to create boundaries not just for himself, but for Ethan. The chaos that came with his mother shouldn't taint the opportunities they were finally beginning to sculpt. As they finished loading the snacks into containers, Tom's thoughts crystallized into a determination to uphold the balance between the past and future. The laughter and unity they were building in this kitchen had to remain intact, regardless of the turbulent history that tugged at the edges. Tom, Lisa called, stepping back into the kitchen with her arms full. I got fruits and drinks. Are we ready? Absolutely. He felt invincible, a rush that came from knowing he could appreciate the now. They loaded the car, and Tom's mind drifted for a moment. Who was he now? Not just a son tied to his mother's faults, but a father carving out a new narrative, one cookie at a time. Yet the question of whether he could maintain this balance loomed large. As they drove to the school, focus shifted away from the past, but the pull remained. There was a whispering uncertainty, one that nudged at him to prepare for inevitable confrontations, how to manage his own expectations and set the right boundaries with his mother. Just as the school building came into view, his phone buzzed again. This time, he recognized the familiar number. It was his mother. Such perfect timing, it seemed, only to request a dialogue that might unravel the very fabric he was trying to weave with Ethan and Lisa. With a quick glance at Lisa, who seemed oblivious to the phone in his hand, Tom felt a cold shiver of anxiety intermixed with determination. Would he answer her, or would he resolutely push back and choose this moment of potential joy, guarding it fiercely against the chaos? His finger hovered over the screen, heart racing once more. He needed to figure out not just who he was, but who he wanted to be, especially for Ethan. The moment of truth was upon him. It was time to decide. Would he face the past he was trying to leave behind, or would he protect the future he was just starting to build? Tom's mind raced as he reluctantly silenced his phone, opting instead to focus on the road ahead, marked by flashing lights and the excited chatter of parents and kids. This was a defining moment, he reminded himself. For weeks, he had been carving out space for joy, creating memories in the wake of his past decisions, and now he had to deter its disruption. Everything okay? Lisa asked, glancing over with a concerned expression, her voice piercing through the fog of his thoughts. Yeah, just work stuff, he replied, unable to shake the nagging sensation that something deeper was at stake, something that involved not just his professional responsibilities but the familial chains he was trying to cut. As they parked and approached the school, the energy in the air crackled with anticipation. They entered the bustling hallway, laughter and excitement spilling from classrooms as children ran past them, joyfully oblivious to the complexities of adult relationships. Ethan dashed ahead, buoyed by the promise of spending time with his peers, and Tom caught a glimpse of the boy he was nurturing, a kid filled with hope and innocence. The contrast with his own upbringing stung sharply. Could he provide an untainted childhood for Ethan amidst the shadows that loomed? "Let us find a good spot to set up the snacks," he called out, pulling himself back from his thoughts. He needed to mirror this enthusiasm. He wanted to be the father who was present, the one who put his own fears aside for the happiness of his child. They quickly found a table and laid out the colorful spread of snacks. Tom watched as Ethan gathered his friends, their faces lighting up at the sight of the cookies. The moment felt whole, the laughter filling the small space like a balm. But in the back of his mind, the phone call lingered like a storm cloud. Each giggle, each cheer, chipped away at his resolve to keep his mother at arm's length. Could he buoy this moment without letting past disappointments invade? "Dad, can you help me with our song?" Ethan's call jolted him from his contemplations, pulling his focus back to the here and now. "Absolutely." He grinned, his heart swelling with warmth. They practiced clapping and singing, and in that tiny moment of delight, Tom realized he was beginning to enjoy himself, to see beyond just the chaos he had always known. Yet, doubt crept in again like a thief in the night. Would there come a time when Ethan would also seek connection with his grandmother? How would Tom respond then? The vision of his mother drifting into their lives, possibly ignorant of the progress he was trying to make, filled him with dread. As the program began, he sat back slightly, allowing himself to observe his son shone bright on stage, radiating pure confidence and joy while all the festivities unfolded. Lisa offered a soft nudge, drawing his attention to her beaming smile. "See? You're doing great," she whispered, and he felt a rush of validation. The evening was really about making memories. It was about constructing an existence that allowed for growth and healing, devoid of toxic influences. But as the applause echoed, a pit formed in his stomach. The uncertainty of his mother's potential impact on their lives was still unresolved. Each cheer reverberated as a reminder he had to confront this challenge when it arrived. The performance concluded, sparking a frenzy of exhilaration among the kids. Parents joined in on the celebration, expressing admiration for Ethan and his friends. But Tom, standing in the periphery, held an odd contradiction within. While he watched the joy unfold, a longing to shield it from the past intertwined with the anticipation of what awaited just outside the door. "How did it feel, champ?" he asked Ethan, kneeling down to meet his son's sparkling eyes. "Awesome. Can we do more like that?" Ethan replied, excitement spilling from every word. "Definitely. We'll have to organize something special," he responded, savoring that tiny spark of a promising future. Yet, the specter of his mother loomed, demanding attention, and the pressing need to solidify boundaries weighed heavily on him. As Ethan bounced off to grab his friends, Tom felt Lisa's eyes on him again, probing, perhaps sensing the tension that lay just beneath the surface. "Everything all right?" she asked softly. Tom nodded, but doubt lingered in his mind, deep-rooted but still unaddressed. The phone hadn't been just noise. It was a message, and one he'd have to face sooner or later. How long could he keep running from something that felt inevitable? One thing was clear, though: he needed to gather the courage to shape the narrative of his life, to confront the past while prioritizing the present they were building. The time was coming for him to define lines, and he wasn't sure how that conversation would unfold. As they packed up to leave, Tom's phone buzzed again, this time just a notification, yet in his gut, he felt an urgent twinge. One way or another, the conversation with his mother was looming closer than he realized. What lies ahead might challenge everything he had managed to build so far. Would he stand firm in the chaos awaiting him, or would the fissures of the past threaten his new foundation? Tom stepped out of the school, the night air brisk against his skin, a stark contrast to the warmth inside. The joyous echoes of Ethan's laughter began to fade as they meandered toward their car, yet the questions still churned within him, questions that seemed to grow heavier with every passing moment. How was he supposed to forge ahead in this journey of personal growth while the shadow of his mother loomed ominously at the edges? As they drove home, the chatter lightened, bouncing between Ethan's jubilant reflections on the performance and Lisa's insights into parenting. Tom nodded along, desperate to bask in this happiness, yet his thoughts kept drifting back to the inevitable confrontation waiting for him. Would he falter when the time came, or would he find the strength to assert himself? Dinner passed in a blur as laughter filled their home. Ethan regaled them with exaggerated tales of his friends, and Lisa teased him lightheartedly while preparing the meal. But Tom sat quietly, picking at his food, wrestling with the inner turmoil that threatened to silence this newfound harmony. Every cheerful giggle from his son clashed violently with the heavy burden looming in the recesses of his mind. When dinner concluded, he stood up to clear the plates, taking a deep breath to shake off the tension. A flicker of his phone caught his attention, yet he ignored it, forcing himself to focus on the mundane task of washing dishes. But an unsettling awareness thrummed beneath the surface, an acknowledgement that there would be no washing away this impending conflict. "Hey, Tom." Lisa's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back. "Do you want to sit for a minute? I'm sensing something is off." He hesitated, the warmth in her gaze urging him to open up. "It's just I feel this weight," he admitted, drying his hands and leaning against the counter. "I'm worried about my mom. I haven't spoken to her since, well, you know." Lisa nodded toward him, her expression calm yet probing. "It seems like everything has been too good lately, and you're questioning if it can last. But you're creating a new life for Ethan, a more stable environment." "Sure, but what if she wants to be involved?" Tom replied, frustration simmering at the edge of his voice. "How can I reconcile that with protecting Ethan?" "That's a valid concern," Lisa replied matter-of-factly, "but you have to decide what role you want her to play, instead of letting her write it for you. You can control the boundaries you set." Her words struck him like a light in unfamiliar territory. He could choose. The narrative of his life, the protective layers around Ethan, they didn't have to remain passive elements dictated by the past. He could assert himself and define the relationship or lack thereof with his mother. "Maybe you're right," he replied slowly, a sense of resolve beginning to grow. "If I can establish those boundaries clearly, it might give us the space we need. I can set the terms of engagement." "Exactly," Lisa affirmed, her voice encouraging. "You're already doing so much for Ethan. Imagine how freeing it will feel to address the past on your own terms, instead of letting it dictate your future." Reinvigorated, Tom felt an unfamiliar clarity lifting the fog in his mind. The internal struggle wasn't about erasing who he came from, but rather about reconstructing who he wanted to be as a father. "Let us do it together, when the time is right," Lisa added softly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. Tom smiled, bolstered by that simple gesture. It dawned on him that he would not have to face this battle alone. He had a partner ready to stand beside him through the turmoil. The urge to draft a plan crystallized within him, a way to prepare for the inevitable confrontation with his mother, an opportunity to articulate what their relationship would look like moving forward. Yet as he contemplated this newfound direction, his phone buzzed again, this time vibrating insistently against the counter. He glanced at the screen. A name he had long avoided seemed to mock him, urging him silently to answer, as though daring him to pick up the call he'd been dreading. Feeling his pulse quicken, Tom took a deep breath, the moment heavy with possibility. Could he finally confront the demons of his past, armed with the understanding of his newfound strength? Or would the call unravel all the hard work he had put into building a new life for his son? With resolve tinged by uncertainty, he reached for the phone, knowing that this moment would either solidify his boundaries or unleash chaos once more. Tom's thumb hovered over the screen, pulse pounding as he fought against the memories that surged forth, the frantic calls, the desperate attempts to connect, the poison of guilt. He wished he could shake them off, but the weight of her name brought everything rushing back like a tide. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself and pressed answer, as if he were preparing for battle. "Hello?" he said, his voice a careful mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Tom," his mother's voice emerged, thick with a mixture of uncertainty and practiced charm. "I know it's been a while. I wanted to see how you and Ethan are doing." There was an awkward pause, each second stretching uncomfortably like an unsung chord. He could hear the faint sound of breathing on the other end, and the tension in his body tightened even further. Why now? Tom's voice cut through the silence, sharper than he intended. Why didn't you reach out sooner? I've been working on some things, she stammered, the floundering sincerity in her tone already setting off alarm bells in Tom's head. I missed my chance to be part of your life, but I want to make it right. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, grappling with the tumultuous emotions that swirled within. Could it be genuine? Or was this merely an attempt to reshape a narrative she was still reluctant to face? Internally, he wrestled with the resemblance of hope and trepidation. Here was the chance he had often imagined, a chance for closure, to redefine their relationship, their past. Mom, I don't even know where to start. He paused, searching for the right words. This isn't just about me anymore. Ethan is in the picture. I can't let old patterns repeat. I understand, she replied, her voice suddenly steady. I want to be better. I know I made mistakes, but I'm different now. I swear on it. Can we at least meet to talk things over? Tom's heart raced as self-doubt washed over him. Would he be able to confront her? He had spent years building this fortress around Ethan, ensuring they were shielded from the chaos that had once enveloped him. But here he was, a phone call away from unleashing a storm that could potentially obliterate everything they had built. The only reason I would consider this is for Ethan, he finally said, his tone baking into a deliberate firmness. We'll meet, but it won't be easy. You need to understand my boundaries. Of course, his mother responded, a placating undertone creeping back into her voice. I'll respect whatever you decide. Fury crackled inside him at that flippant assurance. Her words felt like silken threads, as if she thought this would create some kind of magical repair to their fractured relationship. But he had the upper hand now. The knowledge that he could shape how this would unfold made him feel more empowered than he had in years. There's a coffee shop near my place. Tomorrow at 3. If you're late or if you push my boundaries, I'm leaving. This is about Ethan, not you, Tom said, grounding himself in the resolve that had formed just hours before. Understood, she replied, and he could hear the uncertainty in her voice, a stark contrast to the certainty he had just wielded against her. After ending the call, Tom felt both exhilarated and terrified. The rush of first steps toward clarity buoyed him, and yet the darker shadows from his past lingered like specters, ready to creep back into his life. He needed to solidify the framework he had begun to construct for his family, a foundation that was steady, uncompromising. As he paced the kitchen, Lisa entered, her brow raised with curiosity. That was quick. What happened? Tomorrow, we meet, he said, squeezing the back of the chair for support. I'm finally putting my foot down. I think I can do this, but I'm scared. This is progress, she encouraged, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Remember, boundaries are a strength, not a weakness. Tom nodded, her words providing anchorage, but the uncertainty loomed larger than before. Would he really summon the courage to outline his terms, or slip back into the role he had long evaded? Glancing at the clock, he felt a swirl of emotions: anticipation, dread, determination. He picked up his phone again, the call from his mother bubbling in the back of his mind. There was now a chasm between the person he had been and the one he aspired to become. But as he set the phone down, another text vibrated through an unknown number. The screen blinked to life with a simple message: need to talk. It's about Ethan. The walls he had so carefully constructed began to tremble as he grappled with the sudden reality that he might have to confront yet another dangerous thread in his life. The stakes were rising, and this time, it felt as if he was on the precipice of an entirely new battle, one that would potentially unravel the new life he had fought so hard to protect. Tom stared at the text, his heart thundering in his chest. The pulse of concern resonated through him. It's about Ethan. The unknown loomed large, a dark cloud ready to unleash the storm he feared. He wiped his damp palms on his pants, wrestling with the urge to respond immediately. Who is it? Lisa asked, sensing the shift in his demeanor. Unknown number, he replied, a knot tightening in his throat. They say it's about Ethan. Could it be someone from school? She questioned, tilting her head in thought. Tom shook his head. I don't know. I've always kept circles tight. This feels different. The words hung in the air, heavy with tension and uncertainty. He had spent years guarding Ethan against such unforeseen intrusions. Would you like me to call them? Lisa offered, stepping into the role of reassurance. No. The word escaped his lips before he could reason it. I need to handle this myself. The weight of responsibility pressed down. He had to protect his son, both from his past and this unexpected intruder. After a pause that felt like an eternity, he began typing, a mix of dread and determination coursing through his veins. Who are you? What do you want? When he hit send, he felt as if he had cast a fishing line into murky waters, not knowing what he would reel in. Just wait, Lisa suggested, her tone soothing. You don't have to decide anything until you know more. Tom nodded, appreciating her comfort but feeling the urgency gnaw at him. Moments later, the phone chimed again. Ethan has someone interested in his artwork. This person wants to discuss a project that could benefit him. Relief washed over him, but it was transient, dulled by the undercurrent of caution. Who was this someone? What kind of project involved Ethan? Had he been navigating uncharted waters without Tom's knowledge? The questions bombarded him, amplifying the anxiety already brewing. We should talk to him about this, Lisa suggested gently, sensing his return to concern. Ethan might be excited. Excited? The word echoed hollowly in his mind. Or pressured? I don't want Ethan to feel manipulated. While Tom turned this over mentally, he couldn't deny a flicker of hope. Ethan had a genuine talent that had begun to shine, attracting attention. Could this be a chance for his son to embrace something meaningful? Stepping away from the rapidly brewing storm of thoughts, he forced himself to ground within the moment. Okay, let us keep it light for now. When we talk to Ethan, we'll approach it as something positive. Good idea. Lisa smiled, further easing the tension. The wheels of his mind churned as the evening stretched into troublesome night. He found himself wondering, what kind of parent could he be with an opportunity like this? Would he be able to balance the excitement with the caution he had become so accustomed to wield? Ethan bounded into the room with a smile that lit up the space. Dad, can I show you my new drawings? He asked with uncontained enthusiasm. Of course, buddy, Tom responded, feeling the warmth of pride well up within him. As Ethan unfurled the vibrant sketches, he glanced occasionally to Lisa, who mirrored his gratitude. This was their son, blossoming in ways they had hoped but feared might never come. The earlier distress faded slightly as Tom processed the joy of just being with Ethan. Yet still lurking were the unshakable questions of authenticity and intent behind the message. How would it alter their lives? Between the excitement of Ethan's artwork and the uncertainty of the text, Tom felt a struggle brewing within himself. Each moment together seemed laden with potential but also peril, risk mingled with promise. Later that night, while Ethan snuggled into bed, Tom lingered in the dim light, reflecting on the vibrant energy that surrounded him. He craved a certain control over the chaos that threatened to cloud their lives, yet excitement thrummed beneath the surface of his caution. With a deep breath, he vowed to take it step by step. He would protect Ethan while also encouraging him to explore. But as Tom turned off the lights and retreated into the safety of night, a different message pinged on his phone. We need to discuss Ethan's future. The resolve he had managed to build wavered, now pitted against an unknown threat looming over both his son and his dreams for their life together. The air thickened with anticipation, leaving Tom acutely aware that he stood on a precipice. One wrong move, and everything he had constructed could come tumbling down. Tom awoke the next morning with an unsettling clarity. The uncertainty of the previous night loomed heavily on his mind like a thick fog. His resolve remained intact, strengthened by the conversations he had shared with Lisa, but doubt began creeping in about how he would handle the interactions awaiting him. As he brewed his usual morning coffee, the upcoming meeting with his mother replayed in his head. Would his past encounters lead him back to old patterns, or could he transform the situation into something constructive? Perhaps more daunting was the mysterious text concerning Ethan from someone whose intentions remained unclear. Would he protect his son's budding passion without stifling his potential? Ethan rushed in, his excitement palpable as he recounted tales of new ideas for his artwork. Seeing the unmistakable joy radiating from his son reminded Tom that iteration of their story was not just dependent on him but a collaborative journey between them. "Dad, can I try painting on canvas today?" Ethan bubbled, electricity in his voice. "Of course. Let us make it happen," Tom replied, not simply to accommodate the request but as a promise to foster conversations that could blossom his son's creativity further. They spent the morning painting together, awash in laughter and vibrant colors that filled their small kitchen. In that moment, Tom felt a sense of normalcy that had been missing for years, one that felt both liberating and fragile. As the day progressed, his phone remained an ever-present reminder of uncertain ties. With the clock drawing nearer to the coffee shop rendezvous, Tom wrestled internally. Would it be possible for him to assert boundaries? Would he be able to clarify their relationship without dismantling the delicate emotional balance he had constructed? Eventually, Tom gathered his thoughts, readying himself for the conversation with his mother. His plans within plans were all set. He would redefine their relationship. Her presence would no longer dictate his approach to fatherhood. He assessed all scenarios, rehearsing potential dialogues in his mind until he was sure that he could stand his ground. With Ethan safely at a friend's place, Tom drove to the coffee shop, his heart a storm of uncertainty and determination. After parking, he collected himself, repeating the mantra rooted in his recent decision: control the narrative. Protect Ethan. As Tom stepped inside, the ambience shifted. The aroma of roasted coffee, the rich chatter of patrons gnawed at him, coaxing him back to center. And then, there she was, his mother, looking both familiar and foreign through a veil of apprehension. Her gaze met his with an initial flicker of vulnerability, and Tom felt a tug of empathy he had thought he had buried long ago. "Tom," she greeted, her voice wavering slightly. "Thank you for meeting me. I meant what I said on the phone. I've been trying to change." He studied her, this woman who had always shaped his childhood narrative, often constricting, rarely liberating. "I want to discuss boundaries," he said firmly. "You have to understand, I want to repeat the past. I'm building a new future for my son." She flinched slightly, caught off guard by his directness. "You don't have to be afraid of me, Tom. I truly want a fresh start." "Maybe. But your actions in the past matter, and I want to put Ethan in a position where he'll feel neglected. He's my priority." A lengthy silence unfolded between them. Tom's heart thudded heavily against the confines of his chest. This wasn't merely an emotional conversation but a plea for validation of his choices as a father. "I'm here for you and him, Tom. I want to support you both," she said finally, the sincerity seeping through, almost trembling in the air. "That's all I'm asking for," he replied, every part of him resolute. "We can talk about something new, but if you want any part of Ethan's life, you need to show up consistently. No empty promises." Her expression softened as she took in his words. "I understand. I want you to guide that. Promise me I can be part of it if I prove I can be better." Tom hesitated. There was hope fluttering within the tangled emotions that had traditionally mired him. "It'll take time. You'll need to show me. But I'm willing to try if you are." "Thank you," she exhaled, relief washing over her features as if unshackled from bounds of the past. "I really mean it." Moments later, Tom's phone vibrated. He glanced at the unknown number yet again, this time with a degree of clarity stirred by his earlier confrontation with his mother. Upon opening the message, he found new information: a local gallery interested in Ethan's work. They would feature young artists, celebrating creativity. The project was real, a tangible opportunity escalating from the previous text. His heart surged with protective instincts, but deep down, he knew what action awaited: an invitation for Ethan to thrive. He turned to his mother, sharing this newfound information. "I have to think about how this could affect Ethan. Let him experience opportunities. If he has talent, it should be nurtured," she encouraged gently, echoing Tom's own reflections of balance. In their unity stood a flicker of potential. They were reconstructing a foundation in an entirely new dialogue. As the meeting concluded with a handshake, Tom felt a surge of empowerment coursing through him. It was simultaneous liberation and anticipation. Navigating the call with his mother had proven to be a significant turning point in his life. This would not be a return to chaos, but rather an adventure into the unknown, with Ethan leading the way toward a future they crafted together. Tom headed home, invigorated. He could protect his son's ambitions while showing the way forward. The stakes had shifted now, with a blend of newfound boundaries and opportunities. He realized the lessons learned could transform their lives collectively. As he reached for the door, he had no idea what awaited through it, but a sense of purpose had rooted within him, ready to embrace whatever came next. The contemporary challenge was no longer just about survival. It was about nourishing a bond that would allow Ethan to flourish and thrive, discovering his potential in the wide-open canvas of life. Tom's adventure had just begun, and he was ready to draw a new picture, one brighter than any he had imagined. This was the moment of transformation, and with it came the realization of his responsibility not just for the present but for the future of Ethan, a future they could finally navigate together. To be continued not just in their own art but in the stories they create as a family. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to keep the algorithm alive and thriving. Comment your thoughts and theories about this incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this crucial conclusion. They need to witness this journey of personal growth. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.